There was someone standing at the edge of the woods every night. I waved once, and it waved back exactly 3 seconds later. This happened during my early 20s. I used to live in a small home with a group of 3 other guys. We all didn't really know each other before moving in together, but we had gone to the same college and graduated at the same time. So with all of us looking for somewhere to live afterward, it all just kind of fell into place. Splitting the rent 4 ways, we were able to afford a relatively small house on the more rural outskirts of the city. Everything closer was a bit too expensive. All went well for the first 9-ish months, but pretty suddenly, 2 of the guys decided to move out, leaving just me and KJ. Unfortunately, KJ was the only one of the 3 that I didn't really talk to that much. He was always working, or getting home late, or just not wanting to hang out with the rest of us, so it kind of sucked that it was the other 2 that left. It also meant we had to pay double between each of us. This wasn't something we could keep up, and agreed that at the end of the lease in 3 months, we would go our separate ways and leave the house. For the first month after the 2 left, it became really apparent how absent KJ was. On my days off, I was often at home, just chilling all day and night by myself, which was very different from when the other 2 lived here. I didn't care too much. If anything, it was great having the place all alone. But I did think it was odd he was out for so long all the time. He only worked part-time in the mornings, but I figured he must have been out with friends all night, every night. However, one night, I happened to stay up a little later than usual. I was sitting in my room, and it was maybe about 1 a.m. when I saw headlights shine through my window, pulling down the gravel driveway. When I heard the front door open, I got up and for some reason felt like saying hi, just to keep things from getting too distant and awkward between us. I opened my bedroom door, but was kind of startled as I heard his footsteps begin rushing down the hallway. When I stuck my head out, he jumped like I'd caught him in the act of something. The lights were off in the hallway, so I couldn't see him too well, but I could see that his eyes were wide and his body was frozen just outside of his bedroom door. "What's up, KJ?" "Just seeing how you're doing," I said to break the silence. The way he just stood there in the dark hallway with his wide open eyes and looked at me was kind of chilling. "I'm good." There were another few seconds of silence before I just nodded and stepped back into my room. Well, that definitely didn't help make things any less awkward between us. Why was he acting so strange, hurrying to his room and all? I didn't want to be nosy, but it kind of had me concerned. After a couple minutes, I opened my door carefully and quietly walked down the hallway. I just wanted to listen for a second as I passed by his room, and nothing more. But when I did, I heard him moving around frantically, like he was opening and closing drawers chaotically. It was so odd that I stopped walking for a second and leaned a bit closer to his door. The chaos continued, making me feel really uneasy until it suddenly went quiet. Everything stopped, like he just froze. As the seconds started to go by, I got increasingly more uneasy and wanted to get out of that hallway. But before I could even move, the door suddenly swung open. KJ stood in the doorway with the same wide-open eyes as before, staring right at me. In an effort to cover for myself, I said I was just heading to the kitchen and asked if he wanted anything. KJ quietly muttered no, then closed the door on me. It was honestly really creepy, and only made me feel more like something was going on with him. I went to the kitchen to follow through with what I said, then went back to my room. He was quiet for the rest of the night. For the next probably 5 or 6 days, I found myself more attentive to what KJ was up to. I'd stay up until he got home, always feeling too uncomfortable to sleep, until I knew he was in his room and up to nothing. During those days, he remained in that disturbing, almost zombie-like state that he was in that one night. His eyes grew increasingly more restless every day, and he spoke no more than a couple words, always hurrying into his room. Until one night, after he got home, and as I was in bed trying to sleep, a knock came from the other side of my door. It scared me. I never heard him walk down the hallway to my room. I got up and opened the door. He had that same look, with restless eyes, but had a partial smile as well. He mentioned that he'd just got home and thought he'd dropped his wallet somewhere out in the driveway as he was walking up to the door, asking if I had a flashlight and would help him find it real quick. I found it strange, like he'd never asked anyone for help before, or really to do anything with him. Although I thought it was odd and I was tired, I thought maybe this was a chance to make things better, so I grabbed a flashlight and followed him out to the driveway. He started up some small talk, just asking about work and stuff, as we started walking on the gravel and looking around. I noticed almost right away that his car was parked really far down the driveway though, like all the way at the end, for seemingly no reason. So if he walked all this way, we had to do the same to look for his wallet. We got all the way down to his car, and I never spotted anything on the ground. But then he started leading me away from the car. I was still shining the light around, but realizing there was no reason his wallet should be way out here, away from the driveway. I asked what we were doing. KJ took a few seconds to respond, like he was thinking before saying he went for a short walk out here earlier, so he could have dropped it. But I didn't really believe him. He kept trying to lead me further from the driveway and deeper into the woods. Every time I said we should turn back, he would repeatedly try to convince me otherwise. It got really suspicious, really fast. I felt my nerves building up. Here, you could take the flashlight. I'm gonna head back to the house. I gotta be up early for work tomorrow anyway, I said as I tried to hand over the flashlight to him and make my exit. He didn't take it though. His clearly fake smile faded, and his restless eyes looked more than disappointed. He looked angry. He didn't respond, but the tension was making me really uneasy. After a few seconds, I turned around and started quickly walking away from the woods. I looked back a couple times, seeing KJ just standing there and watching me. As soon as I got to the house, I started packing. I didn't know what that was, but I didn't feel safe with him at all. I didn't sleep the whole night, listening to make sure KJ wasn't up to anything else, but he never came back to the house that night. In the morning, I got everything important, stashed into my car, and left. Even years later, I never heard anything from KJ or figured out what was going on. His behavior wasn't normal, and I honestly think he was planning to do something horrible in the woods that night. But first, did you know that 98% of people who watch my videos aren't subscribed? That means you. And yes, I am speaking specifically to you. Probably aren't. So now would be a great time to leave a like on the video and subscribe. Anyhow, for 2 years, I lived with my college roommate, Jason, in a small house near the campus we used to go to. Despite having been roommates at college for a year before this, we still weren't the closest of friends or anything. We just both had similar plans for after college, so moving in together made sense for the time being. The first year or so went really well. We got a lot closer and enjoyed living together enough to renew the lease for another year. This happened in June, 2 months after renewing the lease. After a normal late night at work, I got home and talked to Jason for a while. Then we both called it a night and went to bed. However, in the middle of the night, I woke up to the floorboards creaking in the hallway. They were walking slowly, going towards the main area of the house. I rolled over and looked at the clock, seeing it was 3 a.m. I thought Jason was just getting some water or something. I don't know. At the moment, I didn't care either, and just went back to sleep. In the morning, I had to go to work early, so I was kind of rushing to leave. But Jason opened his door, looking tired, and asked me something I wasn't expecting. He asked what I was doing, walking around the house in the middle of the night. I was immediately taken aback. I said I wasn't, but had thought I heard him walking around. The conversation basically ended at that, though, with both of us confused at what we both heard, because I had to leave for work. Honestly, I thought our floors or walls must have just been creaking from the wind, hitting the house or something, if it really wasn't Jason. When I got back home, Jason was at work, so I spent most of the night just chilling in my room. And eventually, around the same time as last night, I went to bed. But then again, I woke up around the same time, to the floorboards making that same creaking sound. This time, rather than going right back to sleep, I tried to listen more carefully. It sounded exactly like someone slowly walking through the hallway and into the living room. Once they got to the other side of the house, I couldn't hear anything for about 30 seconds and decided to get up and check on it. I opened my door and walked down to the living room, but Jason wasn't in there. As far as I could tell, there was nothing there that could explain what I heard. I went back to my room and went to sleep. What I found so strange about it was that the sound moved through the house, like if it was just the home creaking. Why did it slowly go across the house like that? I mentioned it to Jason in the morning, and neither of us could come up with any ideas. Jason was off this day, but at 2, I had to go to work. I didn't make it back to the house until nearly 11. When I did and walked down the hallway to my room, I was surprised to see Jason still up. I just saw him in the corner of my eye, sitting on the bed in his room as I passed by the doorway. I called out, "What's up?" as I went over to my room, but Jason didn't respond. I thought it was kind of weird, but maybe he just didn't hear me. So I continued into my room. I took off my work uniform and put on some regular clothes. I left my room to go to the kitchen and get some food, but I noticed Jason's light was off in his room now. When I passed by, I looked in just to see if he was good. He was still sitting on his bed in the corner, now just in the dark, so I could barely see him. "Hey, what's up, Jason? You all right?" I called out. After a few seconds of him not responding, I just left the doorway and went to the kitchen. This was definitely weird, but I didn't know what else to do. Obviously, I wasn't going to just march into his room for no reason, just so he'd respond to me. But it did seem really odd he didn't at least just say hi or whatever. I was in the kitchen for maybe 15 minutes, then headed back to my room. Jason's door was closed when I passed by. For a whole hour, I stayed in my room, but then I heard that sound, the floorboards creaking right in the hallway. I looked over and suddenly something moved under the door. I listened to the creaking continue, but with my last couple interactions with Jason being weird, I figured I would just text him this time to ask if it was him walking around. I waited a couple minutes, then I finally got a response. Jason sent me a question mark, then followed up with, "What do you mean? I'm not home right now." My face went pale and my eyes shot over to the door. I got up and hurried into the hallway. No one was there, but the door to Jason's room was now open again. I quietly stood there and listened, but didn't hear anything. I walked over and peered through the doorway. Standing in the center of the pitch-black room was an unknown man. Even in the dark, now that he was closer and standing up facing me, I could tell he was taller and had a thick beard, two distinct features different from Jason that I couldn't see before. Without any more hesitation, I ran out of the house. I called the police immediately, standing on the other side of the road. When they got there, whoever that guy was gone. Strangely, there were no signs of where he entered or exited the house from, aside from a window that was partially unlocked, but it didn't seem to have been opened recently. What's really disturbing is knowing that he was likely the cause of the creaking floorboards for the last several days in the middle of the night. Meaning he was inside, walking around the house while we were sleeping. Even more creepy is trying to figure out why he was in Jason's room, just sitting on his bed and seemingly waiting for something. Interestingly, in the last few days, that was the one day that Jason had off and that I worked, meaning Jason would be alone pretty much all evening. This makes me think the unknown man somehow knew this and was waiting to catch Jason off guard while he was alone. This would explain why the man was in Jason's room waiting and why he didn't do anything to me. But fortunately, Jason happened to go hang out with a friend for most of the night. Whatever the case, we probably won't ever know the man's true intentions unless it's too late. In 2015, when I was 23, I had used Craigslist to find a roommate to share my apartment with. Back then, I think it was pretty normal to be using Craigslist for finding roommates and whatnot. There weren't really any other sites to do so on, and it wasn't exploited as much as it is today. I posted a listing with some pictures of my place and made sure to specify that I was looking for a roommate preferably close to my age. After only a few days, I got a response from a woman named Hannah. She said she was also 23 and still in college. And from everything we talked about on the phone, she seemed pretty similar to me. And like we might actually make good roommates. So I scheduled to have her stop by and tour the place. When she did, everything seemed great. Hannah liked the place, and we agreed on a price, and within a week, she had moved in with me. I will say, I did notice that she didn't quite look her age. She was a bit taller than me, and just had a more mature, older look to her. I figured it was nothing, though, that she just happened to look a bit older than her age. Anyway, the first few days went by, and we didn't really have much time to get comfortable with each other yet, as I had work and she had college and work as well. It was the 5th day after she'd moved in that I got home from work and entered the apartment around 10 p.m. As soon as I opened the door, I heard footsteps rushing through the hallway and then a door slamming closed. Confused, I dropped my bag down and went over to look down the hallway that led to both of our bedrooms. Their door was closed and the light was on in their room. But my door was open. I knew I'd closed it before leaving, so I thought that was pretty weird. I definitely wasn't comfortable with them snooping around my room, if that's what they were doing. I went in and closed the door behind me. After checking around, nothing looked out of place or like it had been looked through, so I figured it was nothing and just went on with my night. I settled in and watched TV for a bit in my room. I didn't hear Hannah in her room at all for a whole hour, so I thought she was probably just sleeping. She'd mentioned before that she liked to go to bed early. However, while watching TV, I happened to glance at my bedroom door just out of habit, but I noticed something weird. There was a shadow under the crack in the doorway. She was standing behind my door. She wasn't moving. How long had she been standing there for? Hannah? They still didn't move. I called out again. Hannah, are you out there? Several quiet seconds passed until the shadow slowly moved, leaving from behind the door and walking down the hallway. I heard her bedroom door slam shut behind her. That got my heart pumping for a moment. What was she doing? I locked my door after that and stayed up just a bit later than usual, but eventually went to bed. In the morning, I passed by Hannah in the kitchen and kindly brought up last night, just asking if she needed something. She smiled and said everything was good, ending the conversation right there. It was odd for sure, but I just moved on, not wanting to make things bad between us so soon into her moving in. Hannah left soon after, and a few hours later, I went to work. I got home around the same time as last night, about 10:30, walking into a quiet and dark apartment. All the lights were off, even in her room, so I assumed she had already gone to bed. I quietly walked into my bedroom and closed the door, trying not to wake her. After a short FaceTime with one of my friends, I got in the shower to wind down for the night, planning to go to bed right after. While I was in there, I could have sworn I heard something from outside my room. I even lowered the water pressure for a second to listen, but not hearing anything else, I continued my shower as usual. Once I was done, I got out and dried off, but when I looked out the doorway into my room, the door to the hallway was open. I quickly got dressed and looked into the hallway. All the lights were still off, and Hannah wasn't making any noise in her room. I was honestly creeped out now. I closed the door and locked it. What's really odd is that I was almost sure that I'd unconsciously locked the door when I got home and went into my room. Obviously now I assumed I'd just forgotten to, but definitely wasn't going to forget anymore. But why did she even open my door in the first place? Did she even open my door? The whole place was still dark and quiet, as if she never left her room and was just sleeping. What the hell was going on? I stayed up for another hour, trying to watch TV and calm down, but still pretty shaken by what was happening. I just didn't know Hannah enough to really understand any of this or know what to do. I kept trying to convince myself it was something harmless, like she tried to come in to ask me something, but saw I was in the shower and just left. But that still doesn't explain any of the other things that have happened. After that hour, I knew I had to get some sleep, so I shut everything off, crawled into my bed, and closed my eyes. It felt as though, as soon as I closed my eyes, I opened them back up, knowing that I'd fallen asleep, but only for a short amount of time. Unsure why I'd woken up, I rolled over and looked around. The room was pitch black, and the apartment was quiet. Not even any noise from the neighbors just the silent creaking of the old building. But through the dark, I could tell that the door to my room was cracked open. Maybe just a few inches, but that didn't change how instantly terrifying it was. I knew, without a doubt, I'd locked it this time. And even creepier, I never heard it open. "Hannah!" I called out in a soft voice. The silence of the place almost felt like it was getting louder, making me more nervous as the seconds passed. I sat up. I was just staring at the crack in the door, focused on the darkness between it, feeling like someone was watching me through it. But as my eyes adjusted to the dark, I looked around the room again. In the corner, I could see her figure standing near my wardrobe. She didn't move or speak, just faced me and stood in the dark. As each second passed, I felt my heart beating faster and faster until she suddenly took a step forward. I still couldn't really see her well, but I could make out the general outline of her face, and she had this blank, dead stare, like she was looking through me. She took another step, then suddenly ran across the room and into the hallway. A second later, I heard her bedroom door slam shut. After a moment, I grabbed my phone and car keys, then sprinted to the front door and exited the building. I know she technically did nothing to me, but I was absolutely horrified. I didn't even want to stay in the parking lot, worried she'd run out looking for me. I drove to a nearby neighborhood and parked, then called the police, hoping to figure out what was going on with the safety of officers around. It took about 15 minutes for the police to make it to the apartment. By then, Hannah was gone, took most of her belongings and just vanished. It was then, as we tried to contact her and figure out who she was, that we realized all the information I had on her was fabricated. Even her name didn't match up, and her phone number was for a prepaid burner phone. It had no name or identity attached to it. Like I said, this was in 2015, so even a decade later, I've never heard from or seen her again, which makes me think she likely had some really disturbing intentions had I stayed roommates with her any longer. There's a lot of questions and basically no answers. After that, I moved apartments, worried that the woman might come back when I least expect it. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel for more amazing video. Turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any updates. All right, that's it for today. Take care, and I'll see you in the next one.